Welcome to another episode of our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference by B1. Here we talk to founders of sustainable businesses to get their quick take on how and why they started the companies, and more importantly, some lessons learned along the way. Today we're talking to Larasati Vitoux, the founder and CEO of Maison Jar, a New York City-based refillery that helps customers produce less waste, promote a mindful diet, and support local farmers and producers in the process. Larasati, welcome to the show. I'm super interested in hearing more about Maison Jar, especially about how you've expanded your business and your network of partners, of which you have a lot. So, welcome, very, very warm welcome to our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference.
Thank you. Hi, Amber. I'm very happy to be here too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's jump off. First off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Maison Jar?
So like you said, I am the founder and owner of Maison Jar. I call it a refillery and low-waste grocery store. We're located in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. It's like in the northern part of Brooklyn in New York City. And we've been open for 14 months. So we celebrated our first year anniversary a couple of months ago, and everything has been great. We've been received like so nicely from the whole community. And basically, for those who don't know what is a refillery / low-waste grocery store, we are a one-stop shop selling food products, personal care, and home essential, all without any unnecessary packaging. So basically, the goal, the vision of Maison Jar is to fight single-use packaging. I know that you're from the UK, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of those over there. And actually, there's not a lot of those refilleries in New York City. Especially for food, we're the second store. And how it works is that we encourage our customers to bring in their own containers from home. They weigh the empty containers, and then they help themselves from the silos in the jar. They just use as much or as little as they want.
Okay, cool. And what was the kind of aha moment that made you, or that inspired you to open this store, to start the business? Or was it kind of a long process to getting to where you are today, to opening the store 14 months ago?
So I think it was a aha moment. Even though I was working in the food industry before for a natural ingredient company. And I also, while I was still working, I took a certificate in sustainable food and agriculture system while I was still with my former company, because I really enjoyed what I was doing. But I knew that I was looking just, like I've been there for 8 years. I wanted to do something different. And I knew that having an impact, either environment or social, was something important. And I thought, like, while I still am figuring out, I would educate myself. And I went for that certificate. Then COVID happened. And I decided I didn't still know what I wanted to do next. And I was a bit afraid with COVID. So I just left my job, actually. And I decided to take some time for myself. With my husband, we went traveling on the West Coast of the US. And I also went to see my family for a couple of months. And that's when I actually had the aha moment. In France, there's a lot of refillery stores. And I was actually impressed to see how many of those grocery stores there were in small cities, big cities everywhere. And with my husband, we were already trying our best to be as sustainable as possible in our daily life, even not using reusable bags. At Whole Foods, there is a bit of a little bulk section where we're buying some rice and some of our granolas over there. But when I went to France, I was just impressed to see how it just developed and spread across cities. And that's kind of when the idea started. But then, let's be honest, I was working behind a computer, and now being a store owner, there's a lot of manual. You have to be open 7 days a week. So I was not like, okay, I'm going to do it right away. And while I was doing my business plan, I also became a member of a co-op in Green Hill, which is not so far from where I live. And so I was doing those two at the same time. And just, when I was at the co-op, I was at the cashier. I was one of their buyers. I was also a floor attendant, like displaying products. And I actually really enjoyed the fact that I was not just behind a computer. And after doing my business plan and everything, I was like, okay, let's do it. So that's kind of how it happened.
Awesome. Okay. So kind of a slow build, and then you decided to take the plunge.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Exactly.
And what did the first 6 months look like? You've done your business plan and you were like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. What did the first 6 months look like? And I'm asking you because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. So just like a really clear, lucid look at what did the first 6 months of starting your business look like? Was it terrifying? Was it exciting? All of the above?
So it was all of the above. It's true that while I was working on my business plan and so on, sometimes when you do some market research and things like this, you feel that you're not actually working on the store being open. So it can be a bit frustrating where everyone tells you have to start with a business plan. But I have to say that now with some like when I look back, actually all the stuff that I looked over in Europe, what was happening in the US, just understanding a bit better what it means being zero waste. Well, actually now I can see how it was enriching to educate myself in that one. Maybe when I started, it was not really about opening the store. So sometimes I was a bit like, I'm doing things, but it's not helping my store being open. Financial models are very hard to build and to be sure of. I'm lucky that my husband was very helpful in that regards. And after what I had to do, and what I think I did great, is that I started reaching out to vendors and partners. This is really something that I've started early, and it also helps you it kind of helps you build the excitement as well. When you speak with people that kind of share the same values as you, or that they're excited that you want to do this, and that kind of tell you everything that they can do to help you. That was great. And especially when I'm doing this alone. So, you get to speak with other people. So that was a great part, finding the products and the partners. And also the most difficult, and that actually started maybe at months 2-3, is like finding a location.
Right.
Because the key for success for a retail store when you're a brick and mortar is your location. You want to make sure that you are in an area where there's a lot of passerbys. It's also residential, especially for groceries, where there's some cross shopping with other grocery type of shops. And that fits in your budget and everything. So that was the most stressful. It took me so the whole project from the idea. So when I went to France to the opening the store was about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Me working full time on this, I given that I left my job before, and it's out of this 7 months only was finding the store, the location. I think that it could have been faster if I had the storefront sooner.
7 months to find the store.
Yeah. I was a bit, it's actually, it could seem not that long, but actually it was long. I was almost desperate, and I was lucky I signed the lease 2 days before my wedding.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh, you're planning a wedding in the midst of all of this as well.
Yeah, I was also doing that, yes. And but once I found that place, I was very excited because I knew that it was like that I've hit the jackpot. Like I knew that the space, it was really the dream. I was so picky, and I was like, I can't find a better place. I can't find a better place. And once I found it, I really, really wanted it. And once I signed this lease, I was like, I feel so much more comfortable that I'm going to be successful.
Right. How many places did you see that you said, no, this is not right? Do you remember how many storefronts you saw?
I think I saw probably 50-ish. Oh, it was a lot. I was working with a broker, which I think is good because sometimes they know things in advance. They know how to ask questions as well. And I actually almost signed a lease after only 2 months. I found a spot that I really, really liked. Mm-hmm. And it didn't go through with the landlord. And actually it was for the better because the space that I have is so much better than that one that I own. We were going to sign the lease almost.
So looking back on that, that's mm-hmm. fortunate that first one that you thought was it was not it actually, and there was something better waiting for you. But looking back on that whole process, any just like small tips or any tricks or anything that you would recommend to other entrepreneurs that are starting with a brick and mortar store, an actual brick and mortar store, that they might watch out for? You said good working with a broker. Okay, that's a good one because it can save you time and can really condense your search. Anything else that comes to mind?
Yes, I think that something that I wish I did more is speaking with other businesses that have a brick and mortar because there's so little. I obviously spoke with Katerina. She's the owner of Precycle, which is another refiller, mm-hmm. the other refinery in New York City. So I spoke to her, but I think I shouldn't have hesitated to speak with other owners, like restaurants, other just a store, like whatever store, just to understand a bit better, like also having some numbers, of trash removal, electricity, things like this, where for every business is the same thing, and actually getting also some advice on how they manage their storage area, and all those kind of things. I think it would have been helpful for me while I was building out the space to actually have spoken with any type of business it doesn't need to be a refinery for me to get valuable information. And I think on the search could have helped as well. Then I really think that the broker is really the go-to, as they're the expert in finding commercial spaces.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you're saying not just like falling in love with this space, but also looking at the logistics around renting in this area and the infrastructure, which of course, talking to any other business that's just in this space, services that the city provides, etc. That's really important to know.
Yes. And for security, some things you ask, everyone has a bit of their opinion on how they want to manage the security of their store. But it's actually, before once you build out your space, you can't really go backwards. So sometimes actually speaking with a lot of people that own businesses that are storefronts, it's actually good to do it before you build out your space and before it's actually too late. Like
That's
the
really
toilets,
good.
I don't know, like just so
Right.
simple things. And I think that's something that I feel that I should have done a bit more.
That is a really interesting. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because you're fitting your space to meet what you think is your needs. And so talking to other people about things like, as you said, where should the toilets go, or the security. That's interesting. Yeah, those are things that are not easily fixable.
All the cleaning area, for instance, same, like we're not a restaurant, but we have a three sink compartment. We have a dishwasher, and the way you put your plumbing, because we had to do a decent amount of work on the space, and then you work with the contractor, but the contractor is not always he always gives you his opinion and on how things have to be. But sometimes actually listening to other owners, they probably have a better opinion on how to run those type of businesses, because contractors, they don't only do commercial spaces either.
Okay, that's a good tip. Those are good tips, and two that I hadn't thought of. So if we move on to the talking to partners and providers, so you started talking to partners, producers, etc. way before you had your storefront and you were ready to open. What was that process like? Was it first, did you have a really strict criteria or really good idea of like who you wanted, what you wanted represented in your store? Or was it kind of hit and miss as you started to have more conversations?
I think I didn't have specific criteria. It's true that I think that the biggest criteria for me, and those are one of the two important values of Maison Jar, is local and organic. In the neighborhood where I am, I'm for organic and regenerative agriculture myself. I truly believe those are better than conventional agriculture. I know that there's a certain price when you buy organic and from more sustainable agriculture systems. But the clientele of Greenpoint, where I am, is also looking for organic products. So having organic products was important, local as well. So it kind of, restricts you a little bit, especially when you think about produce, nuts, dried fruits, and stuff like that. But then I was not more picky than that. I was asking a lot about their packaging, also a bit about how they manage their waste, making sure to understand a bit if they had any pest management, and just making sure that they were doing the things right. And then like how I was finding them, it was like either sometimes you just put on your search and on your engine, like on internet engine, and you just put a local wholesalers, food wholesalers, and you actually have a list of people that you can already reach out. But what I really like doing is that when I know that I like a product, like there was those beans that are made from upstate New York, and I wanted to have those beans from upstate New York, well, I reached out to the brand itself, and they gave me their wholesalers. And actually, that's the best way to do it. Sometimes to just have a product, reach out to them and ask who is their distributor, because that production, the manufacturer of those beans that I'm getting from, he's not interested in working with Maison Jar. Like if he had to work with every grocery store, it would be impossible for him. He's not even doing that with anyone. He works with a wholesaler, and he gives me the contact of the wholesaler. And then I discover and many other products through that wholesaler. So that was kind of a way of doing it. It's just finding the product and then knowing what product you want, and then you find the person that's gonna sell it to you.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And so for anybody, yeah, go on.
No, just to give you an idea, I would say that in the food space, on the personal care and home is very different, but on the food space, I think that 80% of my the food that I sell comes from 3 to 4 major wholesaler. So that makes it also makes life easier for me.
Right.
So people should not think that I'm working with every different brand to get the product. I'm working with about 4 major wholesalers there.
Okay. Is that something that you would recommend?
Yes, definitely. And I would definitely recommend this because you have to hit, when you think about even being eco-friendly, like there's still a truck coming to you. If you were to order like one thing from one person, even the wholesaler, it doesn't make sense for them. I have to hit some certain minimum order quantities in order to get that delivery. And if I want to hit that minimum order quantity, I need to order not just one product from that wholesaler. So you have to diversify your product offering from one wholesaler. Like you have to get several things in order to be able to get that delivery. So it makes total sense, and I would recommend it. Also by ease, once you're placing orders on a weekly basis, it just makes it so much easier when you order from one place, and you build a relationship with those people. If it's good to build strong relationship with like partners that you really value, with whom you have great relationship, rather than having 90 little relationships where you can't even find time to really build that relationship anyway.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So it's been 14 months that you're open. Have there been any surprising consumer trends that you've seen or witnessed just in this short amount of time?
I mean, now that I think about it, it's maybe not that surprising. It's always funny to see what are the top sellers.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to give it a go of what could be the item that we sell the most in a grocery store. It's nothing that surprising, but I was not expecting it.
I would guess a staple food like rice or a grain or soap. That would be my guess.
Soaps is high. Grains, yes. The rolled oats, we sell a lot of rolled oats. I think we sell a lot of breakfast because I think we sell a lot of breakfast because the nuts and dried fruits also work well. But rolled oats, we sell a huge amount in volume. But our number one ingredient is extra virgin oil. I go through I get the oil in 55-gallon drums, which is humongous.
Yeah,
and I go over it now. After a year, I go every 2 months. I have to reorder a new 55-gallon drum, which I don't know how much it represents in liter, but it's a lot. And also mangoes, dried mangoes. People love dried mangoes.
Really?
I think it's one of the healthy snacks. Still a lot of sugar. We need to be careful, but it's one of those healthy snacks that people just love. We go through a lot of dried mangoes every day.
It's surprising. I grew up in the US, and when I was growing up, I remember that we had a tiny little container of olive oil because it was so exotic and so expensive. And when I moved to France, I remember seeing huge quantities, like you could buy big, like liters and gallons of olive oil. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this must be so expensive. But of course, it's closer to production, so everybody uses more olive oil. So it's so interesting to hear that I mean, I'm not that young anymore, but from when I was a kid to now, people are like olive oil is a thing that you can get in large quantities in the US now. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's Californian olive oil, but we get it through a partner that I really like called Simply, where we have a single origin from Greece. and really work close with some close farms. They share a lot about stories around how they work with those farmers, and they're a great partner. So we're not getting ours from the West Coast, but the West Coast is a bit struggling as well with the water issues. So like you have to also balance out. I try to say US as much as I can, but the olive oil we're getting in Greece.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So what would you consider some of your biggest hurdles to date that just really gave you a headache or really were a challenge to work through?
So I think that managing, I mentioned earlier, the minimum order quantity is not always easy. Even though after a year, I'm very happy of where the store is. We still need to sell more, but we've hit, for instance, my the financial model that I've planned for the first year. We're actually going past it, so it's like
Congratulations.
Thank you. But so yes, like meeting those minimum order quantity when sometimes you have too much of a product but not enough of one, so you need that one that you don't have so much, but you need to order other things. So it's getting better and better. But that's sometimes something tricky where you always have to kind of juggle because you're still dealing with products that have short shelf life. So you really need to be careful with that. Another thing that's, I think, a hurdle for any businesses, I don't think it's really specific to even a retail store. It's having a team to manage. I think the employees and staff management is probably one of the hardest thing that you have to do when you are a manager. And I was already a manager before, and I am now again. And even though I truly am grateful of the team that I have, it's still not easy to manage. You even managing the team, the different personalities, everyone's schedule, taking some time off. All those and people that just we are in a business where there is. I think I haven't suffered from a lot of turnover. But there is some turnover, so you always have to make sure that your hiring is also like following all that turnover. There's all that training process. So I think that it's not a hurdle, but I would say it's one of the most difficult part of the job, which is kind of surprising to think that I think it's every job that's one of the most difficult part.
Yeah, people management is a craft in and of itself for sure. How big is your team now?
So we are a team of, so there's I should say 6, but 7, no, 8, including myself, because there's 3 full-time. There's 3 full-time, 3 part-time, and really there's 2 part-times. They only work 2 days a week, so they're very short part-times. And there's also Naya, she's managing our social media, and myself. And there used to be less, but because now I'm kind of on maternity leave and not working at the store as often, so I also hired more in there because of that.
Awesome. Okay. So do you feel like, this is a question that I'll ask it just the way that it's going to come to my mind. Do you feel like you've seen those first wiggles of traction when you think, okay, this is okay, we're here, this is going to work, this concept is going to work? Do you feel like you've hit there yet? And if you have, when did that happen? What were the signals that you got? Or do you feel like we're working to that?
I think we're working to that. I think being an entrepreneur, you really have stress management is also very important. It's very stressful, and I think the most stressful part is the financial part. You still put a lot of money up front to open your business, and with my husband, we've put a loan in for the business, and everything is going great, but I always worry about how financially it's going to be, and it better be successful, So we need more. I'm very it's going in the good direction, and I think that where I can see that we're going in the right direction is the returning customer. We have more than 65% returning customer, which is a lot.
Yeah,
the
that's nice.
relationships that we build with those customers, and that's very specific to grocery store. When you think about a clothing store, you go there once a year, twice, I don't know. But when you go to a grocery store, you go there weekly. So we actually build a relationship with our customers, and you get feedback from your customers. And I can see how very happy they are of having us in the neighborhood. Like we received some cookies and some cards for the end of the year. Just people saying you are the best thing that happened to the neighborhood last year. And it's like really when I have all those positive and encouraging feedback, I'm just telling to myself that's the reason why I opened Maison Jar. It's really for building that community, and also. Another thing where I know that I'm going in the right direction is that every month our sales are increasing. Every month we're doing better. I think it's going to slow down a bit for summer because it's known in grocery stores to have that kind of slow months during the summer break with everyone out of town. But it's true. Last month was better than in April, and I think June is going to be better than May.
That's a very clear indicator. If your revenues are keep going up month on month, then that's a very clear indicator. Speaking of stress management, what do you do? We know that entrepreneurship will test you like nothing else in your life in a very specific way. What do you do for stress management?
So I do a lot of sports. Even when I was pregnant, I'm not doing it as much now because I'm actually pretty tired by taking care of my little boy. But I think sports has always been something that helped me a lot. I do yoga and rock climbing. So those are, and I also do climbing with my husband. So we kind of have this thing that has bonded us since we've met. So it's true that I think sports helps me a lot. Eating healthy, and making sure that I don't get like because sometimes when you have a lot of work and you have a lot of things to do, sometimes you shorten your meals or not take a real break. But I really make a point to take some time to cook and to have a healthy meal. And actually cooking helps as well with you're doing something else, your mind goes kind of in a flow state, which actually really helps with stress. I feel as well. And the last thing is that I'm a pretty positive person. I think if you ask my husband or many of my friends, I'm not really the type of, even though I'm stressed, I don't appear as to being too stressed. Like I think I have a good tolerance to stress, and it's also because I'm a relatively pretty positive person. Like when we have an issue coming in at the store, or a delivery that didn't happen, I don't try and have this like ruin my day. If you want, I'm just like that happens. Worse can happen as well. Like I think that being positive and having a positive mindset also helps you manage your stress.
So then, just to recap on all of the things that have happened to you since you've decided to start your business. You planned and got married. You planned a wedding and got married, opened your business, and had a baby.
Yes. Yes.
So all of that together, I'd say you're pretty good at managing stress then.
We really wanted to have a family with my husband. I have to say it went faster than expected, and I'm so grateful of that. Like, of course, I was a bit stressed when I found out that I was pregnant, but I worked it. I worked it out. Like I have one person that started working even before the store opened. Her name is Renee. And by 6 months before my due date, I've promoted her to a store manager, and I've trained her, and she's doing amazing. She feels a lot of ownership in the store as well, and it's been great. So I was scared when I knew that the day was coming, but now that it's been 3 months that he's here, and the store is doing great.
Fantastic. All right. So with all of these great developments, we're halfway through the year now. What are you most excited about for the second half of the year?
I think that another thing, I've mentioned it a little bit about building this community in Greenpoint. That's the neighborhood where the store is. How we do that is also through events. And I want to do more of that because those are fun one to organize. And when I say events, it's at the store because when I've built the store, I've made with the architect that I was working with, I've purposely made the store where everything in the middle can be moved. So you can have a big space in the middle of the store and have events. And what type of events? We can have guest speakers. Like we've already done some events. We had, for instance, a coach around eco-anxiety that came and shared some tips on people that want to start a low waste lifestyle. We had some demos as well around kitchen crafting. How you can use your food scraps. We had some games with the Climate Fresk. It's a French organization that organized a game to learn about climate change and the solutions. And we did this at the store, and I want to do more of those. I want to do like some do-it-yourself workshop, like how to make your own soap, your own candles. This I haven't done yet, but I want to do that as well. And we're planning for, I want to do a composting. I'm a true believer in composting. I want to do a composting event soon. And also in September with customers that organize sustainable events. We want to try and do an event where people will be able to meet with some of our key partners. So we're going to bring in some of our partners and having a potluck style of food and them being able to speak with our partners of their products and so on.
Nice. Okay, so lots of events for this summer and into the second half of this year.
Yep, and also something important to say is that last week we launched a delivery and a pickup, and to kind of extend.
Yeah, that's super important to mention. Yeah. So what areas do you deliver to?
All New York City. What we did is that we worked with a platform called Mercato. So that's specific, I think, to New York for the moment. It's they only have local grocery stores in that platform, and they're pretty big in New York City. Like they're known, so they can also help advertise Maison Jar in other neighborhood. And basically, what they do is that they manage the whole back end. I have a button from my website that goes through my Maison Jar page on their website, and they manage the drivers and like they build my library into their website. The only thing we have to do is prepare the order, either for pickup or for delivery. And I'm doing it more to test. Like I think one day I would love to do it in house, and maybe have even to be even more true to the mission is to have a refill, a way of working with a driver that would come back with like the empty jars or whatever. But it's a lot of work. And I think that it's important to see if there is a market for that first. So that's why I'm testing it out through Mercato, the pickup and delivery.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's super exciting. So you said you launched that last week.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Hope that works out well.
Me too. Me too. We didn't have so many orders yet, but it's normal. Apparently, it takes time before we haven't even done so much promotion yet, and they're going to start promoting the promotion very soon. So they said it's just going to go like slowly and slowly, so that also us as a team, we get used to preparing those orders and making sure that we meet the deadlines.
Cool. All right. Well, happy testing.
Thank you.
So we've come to the kind of rapid fire portion that we ask everybody. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. No, 4 actually. So the first one, what do you consider your biggest success to date?
Yes, you did ask me this. So what I think that as personally is something that I was not doing before Maison Jar, and I think that's one of my biggest success is advocating. Voting, marching, asking my vendors to be less wasteful, empowering my customers, and actually, it's trying to extend my impact to not just myself. I'm not just doing all the good stuff in my daily life, but I'm trying to expand that impact to my friends, to New York City by voting and marching, to my customers, and to also the vendors by working with them to try and see if they cannot find a way where we can have a reuse system instead of a system where we need to recycle. So I think that that's my biggest success to date is that I feel that I am expanding my impact to not just me.
Yeah, that's one that makes you feel really good as well.
Yes.
And what would you consider your biggest failure to date?
Um, so my biggest failure, so if I say I answered like for personally, um, I think that when I think about uh, my sustainable journey, I think that I would love to take less the plane. It's, when you think about what really has an impact on what you do, um, there's things that are bigger than other, and you have to be mindful of that. Like, I don't want someone to feel bad about sometimes buying their coffee in a plastic uh, drink, and I think that when you take the plane, your impact is actually probably more, even though the plane is also flying. You should still think that because you're taking the plane, you're still it's plane are create a lot of emissions. And it's true that this is something where I live in, my family is in France, I live in New York City. I still want to see my family, and I try to be very mindful and not go there as often. I go twice a year, and I try to stay longer times instead of going maybe 3 to 4 times. I stay longer times in France, and I try to reduce. And I would love to do it more. I think that there's really something that I can do there to be uh, like on the way I go on vacation. There's so much that can be done by train as well. I know that in Europe is the best. Here, there's still a lot of improvements needed, but just being mindful of that, like, of where where I consume the most in terms of emission, where is it, and trying to do even better. So that's personally. And when you ask me this question about the store, it's so hard to answer. I don't even have that answer for. I feel that, I'm knock on wood, things have been rolling well. I was always sure that I would have had something terrible that would happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
We wish you only continued
Thank
good
you.
success.
Thank
And
you.
what about the most important lesson you feel like you've learned?
Yes, so the biggest lesson that I've learned, and this is really opening the store and working to opening the store, is that small habits can make a big difference. Um, because, like I mentioned before, about when you go to a coffee store and you buy your your coffee in one of their disposable plastic glass. It's the same when you come to the store. Sometimes you can have the impression that it's not such of a big deal to buy your rice in a plastic bag or your rice in a glass jar. But actually, when you do those small little things, and especially shopping like this in a store like Maison Jar, is that you feel your impact when you buy in a glass jar. You're actually seeing it in your house. You're seeing that you're not putting anything in your trash and your recycling bin, because you're just reusing. And actually doing those little things where you can feel your impact, you feel the gratification of doing something better. And for me, yes, maybe that impact is small as a person, but actually, even for yourself, once you start doing this, you'll be like, wow, actually, I'm so happy that I'm not putting anything in my recycling bin and my trash. Well, you know what? I want to do more. I'm going to start composting. I'm going to take the bike instead of taking the car. I just am more mindful of the planet. I'm going to vote. I'm going to tell my friends that they should do the same. So I really think that small little habits, especially the ones that are impactful, like we talked about taking the plane, you don't feel it when you're not taking the plane, you don't really feel good about it because you're just not taking it. But when you buy at Maison Jar, you actually feel good because you're seeing that you see it. And I think that this kind of thing can give a virtuous circle where you're going to do other things to improve in your life, but also to kind of spread the good around you. And I think that's one of the lessons, is that we should not think that sometimes we can feel like powerless through all that's happening with climate change, that what we do has no impact because, like, we're not the one governing and those big firms are doing this, and I just feel powerless as a person. But actually, it's not true. I think that truly, if we start small and we do a lot of things, we're just going to feel more empowered to do more, and we can create a collective movement as well.
So
So,
Same lines, if you could get 85% of the world to adopt a single behavior, speaking of small incremental steps, what would that single behavior be?
Compost.
Compost.
It's a very easy one for me because composting, there's a lot of great things about composting. It gives food to soil. Like there's no doubt that it's great. But if you don't compost, it's actually terrible. Like more than in, I believe, I don't want to say that I'm 100% sure, but I believe that in New York City, 20% of what's in the trash is just food scraps. And though that food scrap that lands in landfills doesn't decompose. And on the contrary, because there's no air, and when it goes into landfill, it's actually going to create methane. So not composting is actually bad for the planet. So that's why I love compost as the first thing that if you want to start in your sustainable journey and you're not doing much, I think that composting is a really, really great one to do because it has great benefit. And when you're not composting, it actually has some side effects.
Yeah, so it's not neutral at all. Even if it's food scraps, it's not neutral to not compost. So then I'm looking forward to that event in your shop, the upcoming event about how to compost, especially when you live in a city and how to compost from an apartment. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you live stream that event so I can attend from London.
That could be a great thing to do. You're right. We want to do that, by the way. Well, we've done it. Someone has asked to live stream one of their events for their own audience, and I think that I should do the same for my audience.
Good idea. All right, so where can we find you? Online, in real life? Where are you?
So Maison Jar, and maybe for those who don't know, so Maison Jar is a maison, which is home house in French, and there's also a play word for all the Americans that they know is that there's a pickle jar called mason jar. So it's actually a play word, Maison Jar, Mason Jar. And we have our website, which is maisonjar.nyc. So Maison spelled Maison. We have also our Instagram account, which is maisonjar.nyc, exactly the same. And we are located in Greenpoint, Brooklyn at 566 Leonard Street, open 7 days a week.
Larasati, thank you so much for chatting with us today about Maison Jar. It's been a real pleasure.
Likewise, Amber, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so for everybody else, we'll see you on B1.